I would say training clients in a training business is like lower on the list of things that you have to do. I mean, there's,
Correct.
of course, there's marketing, there's customer service, and then there's the financial systems. And that's where I come in helping gym owners establish their financial systems and making sure that they're on track for their financial goals.
Hey, welcome to another great episode of the Gym Owners Growth Zone podcast, the show designed to help gym owners improve and grow their businesses. I'm your host, Andres Escobar, and I'm so grateful to have you join us today. Today we have Billy Hofacker, a veteran personal trainer with 25 years of experience and more as a CEO of Total Body Bootcamp Performance Center, and he dominates the competitive Long Island market and coaches fitness leaders with financial best practices. Billy's diverse experience shines through in his Fitness Profits book, his podcast, and he's a sought-after speaker. And we got him right here. So get ready to be inspired by Billy's wisdom and charisma. And if this is your first time listening to the show, please consider subscribing to the podcast and share this episode with someone you think will enjoy it. As we dive into this episode, listen to how his bare bone budget idea can transform your business. Hey, welcome back to the Gym Owners Growth Zone podcast. I have today Billy Hofacker, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You know, Billy is, I think, he is the first guest to send me something, and he has a book here, Fitness Profits, and I tell him I haven't read it yet because he just sent it, so I definitely want to jump into this one. It's basically based off the Profit First for gym owners. So, guys, if you haven't heard of Billy Hofacker and you haven't heard of this book, we're going to dive into who Billy is. And so let's start with that. Billy, if you could give us a little synopsis, a little bit of who you are, peel back the onion a little bit and let us know.
Yeah.
Who are you, Billy?
I don't know, man. I'm trying to figure that out. I'm trying to become, I heard a great story. I think it was like an older Jewish rabbi. And he said, when he gets to heaven, they're not going to say like, I wish you were more like, I wish you were Moses, or I wish you were this other great prophet, but I just wish that I was myself. And I think that's kind of where we're at. Try to discover myself, learn more about who I really am. But I guess some things that come to mind is that I am a husband, a father. I am a person of faith. I am a gym business owner, so I know that'll connect me to a lot of the people listening. I am also a financial and business coach for gym owners, and that's a whole ball of wax that we can get into of how that happened and what that's about.
I love it, dude. That's awesome. Like, guys, we haven't had anybody like Billy on the podcast, and I don't know if we ever will. So, you know, this is so important, so impactful. I wanted to share Billy with you guys, and I think if you're not a gym owner, I think you'll still give some good nuggets of value. So yeah, get ready, guys, get ready. So here we are. You know, we want to start off with the roller coaster question. And so if you guys are new to the show, this is the first question I like to open up with. It helps us really get a grip on how it's going to go. And I say grip, exactly what I mean, because in a roller coaster, if you don't have a good grip, a good handlebar, you don't have a good seatbelt, you don't have a good track, you're going to fly off that roller coaster for sure. Ups and downs, left and right. It's going to leave you behind. And so in our life, we want to have goals and we want to achieve those goals. And so that's what I mean by roller coaster. Roller coaster, it'll get us to its life. And so the track that we live on gets us to there. And so, Billy, what has been a handlebar, a track that's kept you on track?
Yeah.
What's the track that's kept you going on point? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So important. It's so important to know that, because we all know that life has ups and downs. I remember hearing Brian Tracy say that life is a series of problems. And in a lot of ways, that's true. And if we don't have the things in place, those guardrails, as you say, those handlebars that can keep us on track, then we're going to be in trouble. So I think of three things when I think of what's kept me on track. The first is, I'll call it, for lack of a better phrase, I'll call it my life team. So those are the key people in my life that I can go to, and they know the real me. They don't just know the Billy that posts here and there on social media, or what they think I am. They know the good, the bad, the ugly, and they accept me for who I am with all of those good and bad parts. And some examples of those would be, of course, my wife would be at the top. I think of my best friend, John. I think of a processing group that I'm a part of. I think of a coach or multiple coaches that I'm a part of. And essentially, if I am having a difficult time, I could reach out to one of them and get what I need. So that comes to mind for me. The second piece is my faith. Is that there's a Stoic philosophy that says whatever happens, good. So I'm not sure if you've heard that before, but it's whatever happens, good. If a client cancels on you, good. If a team member walks out, good. And the rationale behind that is because life is happening for you. It's not happening to you. And in my faith tradition, I believe that there is a higher power that loves me, that's crazy about me, that wants what's best for me. This is not like a be all end all quick fix, because it's still really hard. But deep down, having that knowledge and that faith that things are going to be okay, and things are going to be better than okay in the long run, that helps keep me on track when things aren't going as I wish. And then finally, I can't leave out systems.
Right.
If you've read Atomic Habits by James Clear, he says we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. So what kind of systems do you have in place when things get crazy, when things get chaotic, when problems occur? What are those anchors that you can have for yourself? Maybe it's a morning routine. Maybe it's a night routine. Maybe it's a fitness routine. I mean, there's so many things, but what are those few amount of things that are going to keep you grounded when everything else is going crazy all around you?
Yeah, I love it. Like discipline, and how do you stay consistent? Well, through discipline, right? And so those routines, those so important. Those daily habits, Atomic Habits. I haven't read that book, but I read the Power of Habit, which is very similar. And so, you mentioned the Stoic principle, and I don't remember that from being from Stoicism, but I remember that from Jocko. and so he's like, you didn't get the promotion. Good.
I saw that. Yep.
More time to get better, right? That's why it's good, And so nobody asks him, nobody complains to him, because he's going to tell him, hey, good.
Yeah, because
you hear that all the time.
Two points to that. One is, most of us can look back at something that in that moment we thought was really difficult. And I always like to be careful with this, because someone's going through a tragedy right now. I don't want you to think I'm telling you, oh, don't worry about it, it's fine. That's not my posture. But with that said, I have met people who have gone through. I don't want to go through it, and I don't want you to go through it. I don't want anybody to go through it. None of us want to go through it. But I have talked to people who have gone through severe battles with cancer, who say that they wouldn't have changed it because of what it taught them. Maybe it improved their faith. Maybe it just taught them things that they never would have learned. And it's hard to see that in the moment, but a lot of times after a time passes, we see, like for me, we might get into my story of my financial rock bottom. And in the moment, I thought it was terrible, but now I'm able to help so many other fitness professionals with some of the things. And if I hadn't gone through that, I probably wouldn't have the passion. I probably wouldn't have gone that direction. So I can't say it was a good thing, even though I didn't like it.
So true. And, perfect segue. This next question is obstacles. Like, what's an obstacle or a challenge that you've had in your business? And tell us how you were able to overcome it. So that's you got it. Like, that's right in line.
Yeah.
Maybe this is
it. Yeah. A few challenges that come to mind for me when it comes to the business would be, I had a coach that I had a very good relationship with. He was actually a best friend, and it didn't work out. He ended up leaving, opening up his own facility. That was really hard emotionally. There was another situation I think of. There was this thing. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but there was this whole thing where like the whole world got shut down. It was a few years ago. I think it was called, was it COVID? And I was in New York at the time, and that was a tough place to be during COVID. We were shut down for
Not as
6.
tough as California, but yeah, tough
Yeah.
enough for sure.
Yes.
No, you saw the streets in New York. I mean, I remember that.
Yeah.
Like that's
Hmm.
impactful.
Yeah. We were closed for
Doomsday,
yeah.
Armageddon type looking. Like what the heck?
And the gyms were the enemy. Everything else was essential. We were not. We were non-essential. So we were basically told that we weren't important. That was difficult emotionally. It was difficult on the wallet. It was
Yeah,
difficult
yeah.
relationally. Everybody knows that. So that was really difficult. If people have been around a few years, they went through that most likely to some extent. But one of the challenges that I want to point out, because I think it'll be a good lesson for people. I've went through this. I had a guy on my podcast just yesterday. It was actually Dan Ritchie, who I think he was on your podcast as well.
Yeah,
He
definitely.
shared a similar story, and then I had a good friend of mine, who went through something really similar. So it's common enough that I think it's important to point out. And these were landlord issues. I've had multiple
Oh
yeah.
yeah, he's especially at that. He knows how to make sure if you're about to get a new place, he knows what to look at, what to make sure it's good. It's so true.
Yeah, I had a couple situations that were really difficult. One was, it wasn't necessarily the landlord's fault. I have to take responsibility. If anything, it was my fault. I had a lease that wasn't locked in for long term. It rolled into a month to month, and I had it for years, and it was amazing. I had a great deal. We were crushing it. Life was good. But one of the things I realized, I think one of your questions probably is a lot of podcasts is like, what's a mistake that you made, or what's a a challenge that you learned from,
Yeah.
and that is that when things are really good, the really successful people are still looking for the problems. And you think of that even in parenting, right? Like things might be really good. I have a bunch of kids, everybody's pretty happy, but I'm noticing there's this one issue with one of my kids, and I can ignore it because like everything else is good, right? But those little problems become big problems. I knew in the back of my head that I should have had a long-term lease because I had this pretty big business at the time. And meanwhile, I had nothing in terms of security. And then sure enough, I had my run, and then the building changed hands. I got called into the office of the new owners and was told that I had to get out, and there was nothing available. So things went from bad to worse because I ended up finding a place at the last minute, but then I had a lot of problems with that landlord. Things like the air conditioning wasn't working in the summer in New York, and he just wasn't doing anything about it. All these things that were so stressful, and that's on top of running your entire business. And I have a coaching client who's going through something similar right now. What I did was I cried about it. I really went to my coaches, I went to my friends, I went to my life team, and I just needed some support from them. So that was helpful. I eventually learned from it, and now I'm on top of things. I'm on top of my leases. I make sure 6 months out I have something finalized to make sure that I don't run into that problem again. I'm not dealing with certain types of people because it's not worth it, and it's going to just create more stress. And that's, not to get too off topic, but that's something where being in a good financial position is helpful because being in a better financial position now, I have more choices. So, if I don't want to do business with this person, it's okay because I'm not so quote unquote hungry for the money. But when I need that money to put food on my table, I'm going to take on the client that isn't ideal, or maybe make a deal with a landlord that is not ideal. So those are some things I learned from that, in some ways that I handled that.
Yeah, it's better. It's have one of my coaches says, when you have commission breath,
Yeah.
they can smell it. And people take advantage of that. And so, yeah, for sure. It's like, I need to get this done. And so, dude, I think that's awesome. And the challenges of that you mentioned there of, COVID, and then the financial and the landlord. Is there anything else you want to talk about, like financially wise, to share with us? Because this is the opportunity. This is your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll say most people get into business. If you've read the E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, a great book on working on your business rather than in your business. And he talks about, I don't think he talks about personal trainers, but he talks about plumbers, electricians, other types of service professionals. They get into business because they're good at what they do. And they say, hey, I can make a business out of this. And fitness professionals, personal trainers, they do the same thing. Maybe they get disgruntled at a big box gym, or they're working for a small training facility and they think they could do it better. They go out and they realize that they don't have the business acumen. This takes time. You just don't have the knowledge. You've never learned it. It's not included in any of the certifications. So you get in there, you think it's about training people. I would say training clients in a training business is like lower on the list of things that you have to do. I mean, there's, of course, there's marketing, there's customer service, and then there's the financial systems. And that's where I come in helping gym owners establish their financial systems and making sure that they're on track for their financial goals. Because the small training model, which is I know what a lot of people have nowadays, it's more of a cash flow business rather than a cash out business. What I mean by that is the amount of small training facilities that grow it to the point where they sell it for millions and millions of dollars are slim to none. So I wouldn't count on that. What I would count on is using that business as a vehicle to find financial freedom in your life. And the way that you would do that in a nutshell is that you would implement good financial systems, make sure you're profitable. You would save up reserves so that you could handle an unexpected event like COVID or lots of other things that can happen. And then from there, you would obviously pay yourself a salary and take care of yourself, take care of your family. And then, beyond that, as your business grows, becomes more profitable with maybe its owner's distributions, you're using that to build wealth and develop financial freedom. And maybe you're investing in the market, or maybe you're getting into real estate, but you're using that as a vehicle to live that big, bright, beautiful future that you have for yourself, rather than too often grinding and grinding and grinding and not having much to show for it. A big part of that is because financial systems weren't in place and they just never got fixed, and they're not going to fix themselves. You're not all of a sudden, so many people think, I'm just going to keep working harder and harder and eventually I'll have like a big pile of money. It doesn't really work that way. You have to be intentional about that.
Goal is a beautiful word to hear when you're scoring on the soccer field. This last World Cup was won by Argentina because of one important player. Yeah, you got it. It was the goalie. He secured the win for the team, and in the same way, ReviewBiz platform will catch negative reviews before they go online. In addition, it helps you score and promote fresh new reviews so you can crush the competition. So don't let those big box gyms take your clients. ReviewBiz will help you build your online presence and turn your own members into your best sales reps. Get your first 5 reviews for only $1. All you got to do is go to reviewbiz.io/try to get started. Awesome. So now we already hit that obstacle challenge question. And the next one is very similar, but instead of about yourself, it's about the fitness industry. And so if we had a magic wand, let's say this is a magic wand. If I was giving you a magic wand, what would you fix in the fitness industry? What's that one problem you say, well, you'll fix it? Like this needs to happen. This, bada bing, bada boom, done. We're not going to fix it, but at least tell us, we'll start talking about it.
Absolutely. The number one thing that comes to mind right away that if we were to fix would change the industry and probably change the world, that is for fitness professionals and gym owners to treat their business like a business. I often encourage my clients, think about a client that you have, a training client, and they're a successful business owner. What are some of the qualities that they have in their business? What are some of the systems in place in their business? And a lot of times they don't have those very same qualities or systems in their own business. A couple of examples would be, I can't tell you, this is one of my biggest pet peeves right now, how many gym owners literally don't have a bookkeeper. I mean, that is like business 101. They don't know what their gross revenue is. They don't know what their profit is. They don't know how much cash they have. Guess what happens when you don't know those things? I mean, best case scenario is you stay in business, but you don't grow. Worst case scenario is you're going out of business. So that's just one example in how we need to treat our businesses like a business. And we also need to elevate our mindset. We need to realize, hey, there are enough fitness professionals and gym owners out there that are doing well. They are making money. They are building financial freedom. I either coached a lot of them or I know a lot of them. You can do it. If you're not at that point now, you can turn it around. you can change. It's going to take a little bit of a shift in identity, and it's also going to take you doing some different things, but you can absolutely do it.
Love it, dude. Love it. I mean, I think that happens to a lot of service business, even business. Like sometimes, like, dude, like the E-Myth Revisited, which you mentioned earlier, it's a great book. I mean, I think every business owner, but more importantly, someone that's in a gym, it's like, I was a trainer and now I'm a gym owner. That's a big difference. That's a big jump. That's a different role. The last thing you should be doing, like you said, is training. Don't be the trainer anymore. Like, be the business owner that you need to be for others to be able to be elevated to where they need to be. So, like, fill yourself first so you can fill others, pour onto others. And that's, I think, huge.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it, dude. Great.
Yeah,
Great,
there's lots
great
of
insight.
skills. There's lots of skills that we're not born with any skills, right? Like everything we do and we know we've had to learn. And a person who just trains in a gym and then opens their own gym, they haven't had the exposure. They either haven't had the skills training, which is needed. Maybe they haven't been trained in sales, or maybe or both. They haven't been exposed to somebody who's maybe doing bigger things, or somebody who's facilitated them to be able to learn these things. So they're just kind of grinding it out, but they're not really growing. Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest problems.
Grinding it out, not growing. I love that. I love the 2 G's right there.
It's right.
Growth over grinding. I love it. I love
yeah,
it.
I
love it. We're going to create a shirt. I'm telling you, I love this. This is great. Nice. And I love grinding coffee, but yeah, definitely, the grinding of
you like grinding coffee, but you don't like grinding your life.
No, for sure. Right. It's like,
yeah,
you're left. What are you left after you grind? What are you left? What are you left with? You're left with powder, dude. And obviously there is some grinding you need to do, some refining, some, taking off the edges of certain things. But when you're left like with powder, I like, if I was to grind my life, it's a coarse grind. You know what I mean? So anyways, I don't know. We go down this rabbit hole for sure, like deep.
Dude, we could do a whole podcast just on that question that you asked. I'll just say this, just to plant a seed. Another huge problem is burnout, and something I'm focusing on lately, which I call marginless living. That is rampant in the fitness industry. Here's how it goes.
Oh yeah, tell us, please.
Fitness professional wakes up at 4 a.m. after going to sleep at, 10, 11, 12. They get up, they get to the gym, they train people for a whole shift. That alone is pretty exhausting experience.
12 hours, by the way.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah. Then they may get a break, but by the time their brain is fried, so they're trying to maybe work on some marketing, so they hop on social media for an hour, don't really get anything done. Then they might try to squeeze in a little half butt workout for themselves. They might grab a nap. Sometimes that's at the gym on the floor, or if they're not too far, they might try home and do it.
And then the owner that I just interviewed, that's what he does. I've gone to his gym. He's taking a nap. Like he literally was at the gym at 5 o'clock, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like 11:30. I'm taking a nap.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, I think you need that. I think a lot of people need that. Real quick, I'm a huge nap fan, by the way. I take a nap every day, and I know Thomas Edison took like 6 naps a day, and Winston Churchill took a nap daily during World War II. Like, can you imagine that?
Wow.
And
during World War II.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And Jesus took naps. So it's okay. we can rest. It's okay. But then that same gym owner, they go back, they do a shift at night. And then what happens to all the other important things in life? What happens to their finances? What happens to their family and their other relationships? What happens to their emotional health? All they're doing all day long is serving people and putting out fires. So this idea of them burning out, living with no margin, it's a recipe for trouble. So I think that's another huge problem in the fitness industry. And one of the ways to solve that, and not all of the ways to solve it, but one of the ways to solve that is to get those finances in order. Because part of the issue with marginless living is I don't have enough money. I have to do this. But the reason you have to do that is because You maybe either haven't managed your money well, don't have systems in place, so you're not bringing home enough. All of that can be fixed with learning some skills, changing your mindset, and putting some systems in place.
Yeah, I love it. Changing mindset and putting systems in place, and financial systems at that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us like I love strategies, and I love people to walk away with some strategies. Can you give us like a financial strategy that people can like pick up and implement?
Yeah, I'll try to.
As best you can. I know it's a big topic.
Yeah, no, it's fine. A couple come to mind, and these might sound simple, but here's what I would challenge you if you feel like it sounds simple: is ask yourself, A, am I doing that? Because yeah, it's simple, but you're not doing it, and that's the problem, right? It's like our clients; they know that they should eat the apple rather than the chips, but the key is in doing it. Knowing it means nothing. Some people would argue you don't really know it because you're not doing it. So and if you do, maybe you are doing it. How can you do it 1% better? That would be my next challenge.
Right.
And then finally, if you're doing it really well. How can you teach somebody else? How can you help somebody else? Maybe it's somebody on your team, or maybe it's somebody else in your life. But one of the things that I recommend really early on is figure out your base budget, your base living expenses. And I'm talking about on the personal side. Most business owners, gym owners in particular, they get into trouble with their business because they don't have their personal finances in order. They bleed cash because they're not tracking anything. They don't really even know what they need, and then they're just spending. Whereas if they get their personal house in order, that's going to lead to when you own a gym, that is you. Those are your finances. Like if you have $20,000 sitting in your business account, that's your asset. That's your money. You could call it a business asset or a personal asset, but at the end of the day, unless you have a partner, that is yours. Right. So they go hand in hand. You cannot do one without the other. You will never find a gym owner who has really good finances at home, but then his gym finances are a mess, and vice versa. You're never going to find somebody who's really profitable, has everything dialed in, and then at home, they're a complete mess, and they're in, like I was, $130,000 in non-mortgage debt. They're going to go hand in hand. So what you'll do as a system is figure out as a base level. So I'm assuming this is a person who is either just starting out, or there's somebody who hasn't really gotten things dialed in and they want to basically start from scratch now and say, hey, what can I do? Let's figure out what you need to survive. So you can call this like your BBB, your bare bones budget. So what do you need to take home to take care of yourself? So that would be level one. And those are things like transportation. You probably have to get to the gym. Things like housing, your mortgage or your rent costs. Things like basic bills that you need to essentially survive, your utilities, maybe your insurance premiums, those things that you absolutely need. And of course, one of the bigger ones is going to be food. We tend to eat pretty healthy, so that's not a cheap item. But we're going to want to figure that out. And then we're going to want to, as soon as possible, and there are other factors, like you may have a partner or spouse that's also contributing to that. So you have to kind of figure out all of that. But then it's, what do we need to pay ourselves from this business to support that? Because if not, all you're doing is swimming upstream and you can't pick your head up and get anywhere. So that would be a very first step, to pay yourself enough, a living wage, to be able to survive. That's not where it stops. That's where it starts. From there, you're going to want to go to level 2, which would be some money for fun, some money for the future. You're putting away money for retirement, and you're progressing accordingly. And then over time, when you're doing it long enough, you have money to not just take care of yourself and your family, but now you have money to take care of other people, and you could do that with being generous. So that's one of the first things that comes to mind when it comes to getting a system. So it's a system for, if you read the book Richest Man in Babylon, it's an older book.
I have.
Yeah. So read that book if you haven't read it. But one of the main principles there is pay yourself first. So that's what he says. I believe it's 10%, right? So 10% he talks about, but in this case, what I'm talking about is pay yourself first. What happens is it's a vicious cycle. Like, I'm not paying myself because I'm paying my trainers. Why in the world would you have a staff full of trainers that you're paying, but you're not paying yourself? That is not a situation that's going to just work itself out. That's a backwards system. You have to take care of yourself and then you'll be able to better support others.
Yeah, I just reminded me, we talk about the book Profit First, right? And it reminds me of the concept of a buffet line, right? And you walk in and you're like, oh yeah, and that's how you spend money. It's like, oh yeah, I got all this money. No, no, no. Next thing you know, you're like, oh, so you're like, oh, this it hurts. But if you have a meal plan, like, all right, this is the plan. This is how many carbs I'm eating, how many, and I think everybody here can relate to this. This is like, your appetite can be huge. Your money comes in and you're like, oh yeah, let me do the next thing you know, it's like, oh dang, okay. I didn't budget for that. So I love it. So bare bone budget, also known as base budget. So we could be the 4Bs, bare bone base budget.
There you go.
Sweet, dude. All right. We have reached the part of Fast Five,
Mm-hmm.
and almost the final Fast Five. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to hit you up with some questions here.
Okay.
Give me like one sentence, and then we move on to the next one. So here we go. Who was an influential person or people in your business journey?
I'll share two. I'm sorry. We do this stuff at my house at the dinner table, like, hey, share one thing. And I'm listing like 10 things, right? So
Right.
I can't help it. But the two people I have to keep in mind, I think the two biggest influences for me in the fitness industry have been Rick Mayo, who I know was recently on your show,
Yeah.
and Pat Rigsby. And both of those guys influenced me, believe it or not, as smart as they are, with the high level of business acumen that they have, they influenced me with their words and with their encouragement. One thing that Rick said to me, I had a huge vision for my business. Things were going really well. And I don't know what it was about it. I have a lot of respect for him. And he just looked me in the eye and he said, can a guy like you do X, Y, and Z? Absolutely. And once I heard that, I was like, Rick thinks I can do it. Like, now I know I can do it.
Wow.
And I didn't actually do it because things changed a little bit. But however, that really spoke a lot into me. And then Pat Rigsby, I have to give him so much credit, because when I shifted gears and began coaching gym owners with their finances, he told me that he felt like I could carry the torch and I could really make a huge impact with that. And that meant a lot to me.
Who's Pat Rigsby? Sounds familiar. I don't know.
Yeah, Pat Rigsby is a fitness business coach.
Okay. All right. That sounds familiar.
Yep.
I just can't place the face with the name.
Yeah.
Cool. Next one is, what's one thing you wish you had known when you began your business?
Man, one thing I wish I knew when I began my business, I would say one of the biggest things that I've learned along the way, and yeah, if I knew it sooner, I think I would have been better off, was sort of like, it's kind of like a deep answer, but it's sort of like the underneath the surface stuff. A lot of people focus on skill acquisition, and that is obviously crucial. But I wish I kind of understood how important it was to really dig deep in terms of my character, things that were affecting how I was and my mindset, things like my family background, things like the experiences that I had, and really digging deep into those things and developing that over time has been huge. And it's been a huge asset in business, because it's giving me the ability to connect with people, to empathize with people. So I think that was one of the things that I wish I knew early on. And it's one of the things I'd recommend to other entrepreneurs is, don't make the mistake of just focusing on the external, but also focus on the internal.
Love it. All right, awesome. The other ones are pretty simple, so I know you're gonna knock it out with one sentence for sure. So, what is a book, a blog, a podcast, or a media you recently consumed has positively impacted you?
Man, I read a lot,
I know.
and I'll just share one of the books that I read. So the one that I read before this last one was called "The Gap in the Gain" by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. So that was I recommend that book for sure.
Nice, awesome. Next one, do you have a favorite online tool?
Man, I have, as you may have figured out, Andres, as with our time together, I'm not the tech guy. So I keep things really simple. I mean, I use Google Calendar. I use Acuity for my financial coaching business.
Okay.
So those are good tools.
Cool.
Trello. I know you said one, but these are just coming to mind.
Yeah. No, Trello's good. Acuity's good. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love it. I love both of them. What's one habit or practice you believe everyone would benefit from?
This is, if you listen to nothing else, do this. every single night before you go to sleep, start thinking about the next day, where you ultimately want to wind up, and write down your 3 wins for the following day. And then every morning, it's kind of like a multifaceted. You're gonna do your gratitude, right? What am I thankful for?
Yep.
What am I excited about?
Yeah.
But then that night, you're gonna do a review on the 3 things you said were going to be wins, and then rinse and repeat, and do that every day. And then if you want to make it even better, is share that with somebody. So maybe you text your buddy, or maybe I do it with my wife.
Nice. I like it. It's a different take. I do the 5-minute gratitude journal, and that's part of it. So I like this. Is pretty cool. Good stuff. Yeah, take that away, guys, please.
Yeah.
And this is another one that I've just started to ask today. This is only I had another Billy on here, so he was the first one, and now I'm asking you the second one. So, do you currently have a gym, right?
Yep. Correct. Yep.
Do you guys have a referral process? Do you guys recommend using? What's your referral process look like over there?
As far as a referral process, I would say the absolute best thing to do is make it personal. There are great systems. You can do all types of automated stuff, but I like the idea of when somebody's either at the point of sale or within their first couple of weeks, you start listening to the other people in their lives. So, for example, like we just signed up a woman, of course, I'm forgetting her name, but she starts telling about her husband, and they're going to a concert together. So I just texted her this morning, and I said, "Hey, how was the concert?" And I said, "Hey, by the way, did you want to bring your husband in?" So you're kind of like marrying like the personal touch side with the referral, and I find that works really well. It doesn't feel. I think you mentioned on this interview, you mentioned having that commission breath. And so it's kind of like the opposite of that, right? Because it's very informal, very personal.
Authentic, real connection, conversation, and you're just inspiring them to do it. I love it. That's great.
Yeah, we've done the things where it's like, hey, like back in the day, we had this is going to make me sound so cheesy. We had a huge, when they were newer, I guess, big flat screen TV in a box with a bow on it.
Yep.
And it was like, hey, whoever refers the most people is going to get a chance to win the TV. And honestly, it didn't work that well. We had people just referring people just to win the prize, and they were like bad referrals, and it was just
referrals. Oof, oof, dude, you gotta check out. Oh, I love it, dude. We'll talk some more about the referral because that's one of my like jams. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it so much. All right, so this is the final question, and so this is I told you about the magic wand, but I don't know if you knew this, but we have a time machine, and so. So Billy, we're gonna go walk into this time machine, and I'm gonna take you back to 14-year-old Billy, little Bill, mind you.
They call me Boo, little Boo.
Boo. And so we're gonna walk out of that time machine, and we're gonna talk to Billy, and Billy because you've lived his life. And what is one piece of advice you would give little Bill?
I would say little Billy or little Boo, that I literally can't only give one piece of advice to you. So I'm going to share 2. And that is, number 1, don't worry too much, if at all, about what other people think. Just do what you want to do. You're going to have to be a little, quote unquote, weird to get to where you want to get. You're going to have to do things a little bit differently, and don't worry so much about the crowd. And then the other piece is get these things in order early, because I think you have 2 choices. You could have a difficult time now and then a hard time later, or you could have a difficult time now when you're young, when you have the energy, when you can do it, and then you can have an easy time later. And I think that's a lot of a better approach as opposed to what most people do.
Yeah, I like it. That's awesome. That's awesome. Billy, thank you for coming on. I know we've had our obstacles today, and if you notice, Billy's camera kind of changed a little bit, and we had to go through it. We had to go through it, and we had to figure out techie problems. We figured it out, and it's all good. It's all good. We're finally arrived. It's at the end. I've grown more. I've picked up a couple of nuggets that Billy's given us. I hope you have as well. Hey, Bill, thanks for coming on, man.
My pleasure, man. I was so excited to be here. I couldn't sleep all week. So thanks, Andres, for having me on. And it's been a pleasure.
And make sure to check out his book. All right, guys. Man, that was such a fun episode. I really enjoyed what Billy said about treating a gym business as a business. It will help you financially grow your gym. Oh, who'd have thought, right? What was your favorite takeaway from today's episode? I want you to connect and share a message with me on Instagram at MeetEsco. And by the way, that's my personal Instagram, and I would love to hear your thoughts. I want to go ahead and thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode today. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and subscribe to the show on the platform you're currently listening on. And remember, leave a rating and review. It helps us improve the show, and the feedback just means the world to us. Also, check us out on YouTube. It's the channel filled with a whole bunch of podcasts and other strategies on reviews, on sales, and on marketing. So go ahead and check us out on the YouTube channel. By the way, as always, I want to thank you so much for the encouragement, and I truly appreciate it. And I'll be seeing you next time in the Growth Zone.